on your screen if you want to. Actually, you know what? We can switch. And center and okay.
I mean, it's not like we have a huge place, but hey.
Cool. So, hi everyone. Hola. Bienvenidos. Thanks for coming out, especially in the rain. Super excited to have you here at Lummi HQ for this collaborative event between Lummi and Flexi. So welcome to Future Ready, Supercharge your creative teams with AI. This is going to be a very casual talk, a casual conversation. We're mostly going to be doing a lot of fireside chats between myself and Pablo. And if I can just see a show of hands here, how many people here came for the design? Design knowledge, meeting other designers? Cool.
Science stuff, yeah.
Design stuff. How many people came for the AI? AI knowledge, AI tooling? Yeah, okay, cool. How many people came for the free pizza? That's what I thought.
For the beer.
We'll send you some. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna go through some of the things that everyone here is interested in. You guys have already eaten some pizza, so we have that covered. We'll do a little intro into why we're all here and what this event is about. We'll talk a bit about human-machine UX patterns. Also, what does it mean to work with AI, especially when it comes to creative teams. We'll go over a little case study, and then the magic starts with a fireside chat. And of course, any questions that you guys have, we'll make sure to cover them all. So this is me. I'm Allie. A little bit about myself and my background for those of you, especially those tuning in online who don't know me. I used to lead design for an autonomous driving platform at Microsoft. I helped serve individual personalized travel recommendations with machine learning at Booking.com and worked on tools to empower economic opportunity at LinkedIn. And all of this was really cool and fun, but I always found myself working on tons of side projects, and I would constantly have different founders coming up to me and asking me if I could help them with mentoring their design teams or helping build their initial product. And I actually found myself really loving that more than my day job, which is how I came to found Flexi, which is a design consulting and product studio. And basically at Flexi, we design world-class products through the studio that we have. We design websites, we develop them, we provide awesome design talent through staff augmentation, and we coach teams through mentorship. And our vision is really to transform the future of design with bold, forward-thinking innovation to accelerate business growth and impact. And this is something that we don't always see with design studios. I was talking to a bright gentleman over here about that. A lot of times it's about input or output rather, and it's not really about thinking how can we make the most impact in business, which is, as designers and marketers, what we're always trying to do. So a little bit about our team. We have a global team that works from product design to art direction, branding and web development. We're all over from the US, Argentina, Mexico, Spain. We even have a super cool guy in South Korea. And we do all kinds of projects. So this is just to set the context a little bit so you get to know a little bit more about the projects that we have and what we're actually doing with AI. So one of our first projects was working on the Pay website. And this was a project that we did without a really great AI tool to be able to provide powerful imagery. So as you can probably see here, some of the images look a bit stock because they are. And for us, this just wasn't good enough. It really didn't cut it. So then we started working on all kinds of other projects, web-based projects, and we just found ourselves having to create so many different assets. But we just really didn't have a good resource of how to do this. We tried with all kinds of other AI tools, and again, it just wasn't really cutting it. And then because we also work on a lot of mobile projects, we find that imagery is also something that really has to convey powerful stories, especially when it comes to mobile applications. So one of the projects that we worked on was also for Pay. We completely redesigned their design system and the web version of their application, which is essentially all around sending funds cross-border and empowering the global workforce to do so. So even though we're using the best UX patterns humanly possible, still there was a lot of instances where within this we had to create, all kinds of inspiration and content, and the world of AI and creating all kinds of content with AI is still very much developing. So through this process, we started to discover new tools and new methods of working, but really the important thing here was to properly use UX patterns when it comes to the interaction between humans and machines. So, yeah, you want to come up and do this?
Okay, cool. Okay, so thank you, Ali. This is part of a presentation that I've been giving in different places, and this is about, what I've been calling like the pillars of AI UX design, which I don't know, it's pretty much just like UX design, but applied to AI products. So I put together some pillars of like different patterns that I noticed like when creating apps that are powered by AI. So this is different from actually using AI. I'm talking about like actually creating apps that the backend are powered by different models or different LLMs to create an experience. So this is very nerdy because this is actually like for designers. So whoever is not a designer is not interested in this. I'm sorry, but the patterns and the pillars that I've been finding are mostly on. You know what? This is out of order. Let me put it from here. I have my presentation over here, and I think this is going to be better. Give me 1 second. How to work with AI. It's just that we were combining more presentations and like some mess happened there. So I think that this is going to be better. There you go. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So let me go to the pillars. There you go. So the pillars that we have been finding, it's what we call guides, inputs, personalization, transparency, and character or personality. So those are the things that we see as the pillars of like how to create experiences that are powered by AI. Right now, I'm going to focus just on the first 3. I think those are the most important ones. The other ones are still important, but I think it's maybe too nerdy. So let's start with guides, and which are about showing users how to interact with AI effectively. So you as a user, how do you understand how to talk to the machine? And guides provide this, well, a clear, actionable hints or instructions to help the user like get the most out of the tool. And even though AI can just process natural language and it can just like, it seems like it just talks to you and it just understands everything, users still need to know what the AI, what the app can actually do. Even though it can just like talk normally, just like a human being, like actually it needs to, you have to understand what it's actually connected to, right? And what it can actually do. So the goal of the guides is to help the user, people, use the robots with confidence and with, or objective as designers is just to clarify what is possible. And it helps just like understand the real capabilities behind. It just like reduce the fear and uncertainty that it might cause by using a product that seems like it's powered by a robot. And also inspires users, by showing what is actually possible. So, what are some of the UX patterns that help make guides more effective? Just like regular UX patterns, like placeholders, just progress indicator, tooltips, tutorials, and good old templates. Now, guides can go wrong in different ways because they could be too vague if it doesn't give enough detail about like what it can actually do. People can get stuck. Also, it can be the opposite, whereas like you give too much too much information and just excessive, and you over-explain, and the user feels overwhelmed, and it's just like it's too much information, too many instructions. Also, it's not contextual. Maybe the instructions that you give are not context aware, so you don't want to give all the instructions of what it can do. It's better to just like say, hey, with this at this moment in the interface, in the experience, this is what you can do, and these are the steps that you can take. And also, like sometimes you take a guide and it keeps suggesting something that is not something that you want, that you already told it, like, I don't want that thing, and it keeps ignoring you. So, like, for example, some examples from, like, maybe some of you have used ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure, on, like, these could be, like, some of the guides that it has, where it's, like, these starting points. Like, hey, you don't know where to start, and this is, like, to kill the idea of a blank page state, right? Where it's like, hey, where do I start? Like, they offer these kinds of starting points. For example, Runway, which is a video AI creator, it has these kinds of examples too, where it's just like, hey, it gives you an idea of what you can do too. Perplexity also has, as soon as you focus on the input, it has some suggestions, and it just tells you, the cool thing about Perplexity, since it's connected to the news, it's connected to the web, usually the suggestions it gives you are pretty good because they are about current events or things that are just happening right now too. So it's like, oh, it's cool. I want to learn about this thing that's happening right now. Also, Notion, like which is a productivity tool, but when you have AI installed, it has some suggestions of what you can do in context with the content you are using right now. Also, Claude, which is another LLM that's similar to ChatGPT. It has like get started points, and again, just like that to get started with different examples. And also Pi, which is an AI assistant, has a bunch of suggested topics that are usually pretty interesting and things that you might not even think about. So it's good to just like, oh yeah, I should use this AI as my personal coach or something, and I didn't even think that I could use it that way. Gemini is another AI chat that has starting points on the top too. So all of them, as you see, they use these type of, the patterns are very similar as starting points, as guides that you can use. This one is Grok, Elon Musk's AI. It also has these starting points. I rarely use them, but they exist. Also, another pillar is inputs. So we saw some starting points, like how can you get started, and just like some inspiration of how to use this AI. But like also you need to understand how to tell the AI what to do. And it's what people type or they say to the microphone or they upload a document, all the different types of inputs that you can use to talk to the robot. So the idea is to make giving instructions, just easy and natural, and in context where you don't have to explain everything with text. It's just like sometimes it's better just to say it or just like give it a document. And which means they also need the right input because it's very something that actually a mistake that we made at Musho, and that we learned really quickly that it was not the best input. Musho is a design tool that we created with AI, and we just said like, hey, just put a text input and let just people put whatever, you know, and they're gonna know what to put. But people didn't know, and they were just writing these excessively long inputs and just like prompts that like gave a ton of details about what they wanted. But the thing is that our tool couldn't do those things. Since it was just an open input, text input, people were just going crazy asking it to do like very crazy designs, but our tool wasn't actually connected to do those things. It could only do landing pages. So it was the worst type of input. We should have given examples or just guide the user through the different things that the actual robots could do, because we didn't have them connected to a lot of the things that they were expecting to use. So it's good to know what is the right input. And since we see like, I don't know, we should see ChatGPT, we see Claude, we see these tools, they're chatbots. And as chatbots, it's great to just have an open input because you can just talk to it and it's always going to generate something new. But when you actually want to create a tool with this, well, you don't want it to just like, these things are always so positive and they're always so eager to help. And they always say like, hey, can you do this? And they always say, yes, of course I can do it. But they cannot. A lot of the times, like in Musho, they were not connected to anything. And they were telling the user, yes, of course, I will do it. And here, it's finished. But it didn't do anything. It was just like a chat thing that was always, I don't know, too optimistic. So again, sorry, I'm going in a rant, but it's just quite the right input for the job. And the idea is that a good inputs keep it clear, make it simple, so you tell the AI what you actually want to do, and you offer options. Just offer options of what you can actually do with this. Different UI and UX patterns for inputs are just natural talk, which is, I suppose, the easiest one, but it's also a double-edged sword, because if it is natural talk and you're just talking to this thing, it could just go anywhere and it cannot be as guiding as you might want it to be. So it could give you very unpredictable results. Or you can give them options. So that way you set rails on what the robots can do. So you say like, hey, these are the things that you can do. So here are the options of what you can do with this thing. And also just a step-by-step, and also just allow different types of inputs like voice input, documents, photos, videos, anything that will help the AI to figure out things. Pitfalls of different inputs is that it can be too lengthy, so long forms. You don't want to overwhelm the user with lengthy forms. It's also not accessible. It's confusing. A lot of things that they're like, why are you asking me even this? Like, why would I give you this if it's not something that I want to give you? So some examples. There's an app called It, and all the interactions are with voice. And this is because it's almost like speaking to this app. So the right input is just like natural language and just like by talking. Another one, Notion, like a selection of documents is a type of input. You don't have to write it down again. It's just like, hey, there's already this document, this part of the document, I want to do something with it. So that can be considered also an input. Also Claude, they allow you to add documents, or add photos. That way, sometimes it's better to explain things not with words, but with an image, you know? For example, in Lumi, we are doing something where it's like with retouch, and it's just like a text input, but also an image is the input, because like what you're doing is you're changing a specific image and you're changing it to do something else. So the image is the first input that you give it. Runway allows you to use a sieve, which is a specific type of a photo. and also like upload an image or a video, and that can be used as a starting point. And also Pika has something that they call styles, so like different styles, and the different output is going to be based on those styles, like a 3D render, if it's moody, if it's anime. Some of these are a little bit cheesy, I would say, but I don't know, like that's, I think one designer decided to do these kinds of things, and then everybody else started doing them, but I don't know, people like them. Another thing is like actually redoing an image. That means, A, the current image is the first input, and now you're redoing it to do something like, I like this, but I want something different. So the previous image is used as the starting point. Also, Descript, which is a video tool, is amazing. I would say potentially my favorite video tool out there. And it has very specific actions. It doesn't allow you to just like write down whatever you want. It tells you you can shorten the length of the video, you can create a YouTube description, you can create, you can edit it for clarity. I'm pretty sure that they saw what people were actually doing, and instead of leaving it as an open input, they said like people mostly just want to edit something to remove all the noise. So let's just do one button that does that. And I'm pretty sure that in the background, this is actually doing, it is actually a prompt. At the end, it's a prompt, but they rewrote a prompt that they know that it works. So you as a user, you're not writing that prompt. All you see is just a button that says edit for clarity. So yeah, another pillar is personalization. I'll go quick with this one. It's just like about letting users take charge. You know, like these things, generative models, they're very unpredictable, and they can imagine so much crap. And it's cool because like they're just like very creative, but they also I don't know, like since they are trained on everything that's out there, they're trained on all the images that are out there, all the text, all the transcripts from videos. Suddenly, the weighting of the output is very average, and it's like if you're not very specific with what you want, it will always give you vanilla flavor instead of hey, there's so many flavors, but the most common one is vanilla, so it mostly just gives you vanilla whenever you just ask for anything. So I think it's one of the things that you want to allow the user is allowing them to give the ability for the robot to understand more the user. So the output that it gives is more personalized and it's more fine-tuned to the user's needs. So I like to think of it like giving users the ability to just like fine-tune the AI. So it's working for them and not the other way around. So what are the goals of this? It's just like, hey, give the users control, give them flexibility of what it can be doing. Like if you want it to be formal, you want it to be fun, you want it to be something else. And also ownership, where like, hey, this thing is working for me, and it's the output that it's giving feels like it's very personalized, like it's my tool. And some of the patterns, like again, these are very, very old school patterns, just the sliders. Like sometimes you want it more fun or more formal. You want it more like, I don't know, like more heavy or more light. And toggles and switches and the selection of models, because sometimes these models act differently depending on what model you select. And also like adjustment of biases, as in like, hey, I want you to have this type of opinion. I want you to think this way. So given the AI biases means like, hey, I want you to think like this brand, like my client. My client believes in these things. They have these values, so I want you to think that way. So you adjust those biases also with these things. And well, some of the pitfalls can be confusing, can be unreliable, and again, sometimes it just doesn't give you feedback. Some examples of this is ChatGPT. I don't know if you have ever done this, but you can customize your ChatGPT to be like how you want it to be, like with custom instructions. They haven't really opened, and I will say that it's, you have to really know what to ask of this thing. I'm pretty sure that whatever you put here, it actually goes through a filter that rewrites it for you, because we don't know how to write, and I'm pretty sure they assume we are shit writers, so this thing just goes through something else that translates this to LLM or machine language. But the idea here is that you can say like, hey, I want you to always be concise with your answers. I don't want you to be polite. That's something that I just tell it. Like, I don't want you to be like welcoming always and just like, hey, hello, Pablo, how are you? Like, I never want that. So that's one of the things that you can give it. It still says hello, and it's still very nice. It's such like, dude, like I don't care, just do your job. Which I know it's these things are going to overthrow us later, so maybe I should be nicer with it. You should say thank you and please, because later they're going to be dominating us. And they're going to remember. Anyway, so this is personalization on ChatGPT. This is some Flexxi. For those who have used it, they have different ways to focus the type of outputs that you want. If it is going to be like academic, if it's for the web, if it is for like science stuff. So you can just like specify what type of personalization you want. Also, Perplexity has something that's called Spaces, and this is like you can give documents, your knowledge base, your wiki, and that way, well, like the output that it gives you is going to know those specific things about you. Also, Anthropic, which is like Claude. Maybe you have heard of this one. So Anthropic has their own tool to create the code and like almost like a playground. They call it Workbench. And they allow you to give one of the main things that you can do with AI, which is assistant prompt. Assistant prompt is almost like giving it a role. It's telling this is who you are. It's giving it a personality almost, and giving it almost like RoboCop. You know, you remember that has these prime directives. Now, whenever it will be like, oh, I cannot kill my owner. You know, so it's kind of like that, or Asimov's rules. Anyone knows Asimov? Okay. So like it's almost like saying this is who you are. You know, it's giving it a personality. This is your problem. This is part of your core. So again, that creates very personalized outputs. Also, what happened there? Oh, sorry. Well, damn it, I'm an idiot. I hit that. Well, here there's something else I did. I wanted to highlight it and then I forgot to highlight it and just put a gray box in it. So anyway, in Midjourney, there's a way to personalize your own outputs. So if you go through like hours, I've gone through hours and it's kind of addicted to actually qualifying images, where you say like, hey, I like this image. They present to you two images and you say, which one do you prefer? And you're like, oh, I like this. Oh, I like this. And after hours of doing that, like it learns about you and it learns about your taste and what you like, and suddenly like the output from Midjourney now knows what your taste is, and the output it gives you is going to be very different from what others have. And this personalization has its own code, so you can even share your personalization code to others, so others can create images that are based on your taste or what you like. So sorry, it should be there, but you can figure it out. Also, something Pika also has a seed that also allows you to just like see the specific type of image on the settings. And that's it. There's also other pillars, transparency. These are more about like explain the reasons behind this. Just like it's about privacy, about clarity. You want the user to understand how decisions are made behind, what type of data is it using? Is it being trained on my stuff? Is someone else seeing my things? How did it come up with this solution? Like seeing those things behind, I think it's good to just explain what is happening, because that gives gives confidence to the user of what is happening, and they understand a little bit more. And when they know what is happening, they can also understand how to ask of it for things, because like, oh, it did it this way, so next time I should ask it this way, So these are some examples of, for example, ChatGPT. It has this very tiny little thing that says ChatGPT can make mistakes. Well, they have that thing. They tell you, and it does make a lot of mistakes. And hallucinates a lot of stuff. Also, for example, Figma has this very hidden thing. Usually these things are hidden because it's supposed to be about transparency, and I don't know. Usually those things are not very transparent. For example, Figma, if you don't turn it off by default, they're trading on your data, and so like you should turn it off if you have been signing NDAs. Perplexity and OpenAI, they have something for data management. So it's just like, hey, what is happening to all your prompts? And sometimes some of these are very personal. Maybe if you're like me, maybe you're using, and I think some of you are also using. You told me you're using these things as your psychologist, like your psychiatrist, and you're asking questions about like, I don't know, your relationships and stuff. So a lot of that stuff is very private, right? So you don't want it out there. So, well, if you don't want these things to be improving on your personal life, maybe you want to turn it off. And another thing is character. This is just personality. These things, hey, they can be anything. So you could potentially also give them personality. And I'll just give you some examples really quickly. For example, Descript, they call their AI underlord as opposed to overlord. As an underlord, it obeys you, it doesn't come and replace you. I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's also Notion, they created this little character just to give personality to their AI. I think it's, I don't know, like it reminds you, oh, I'm talking to this assistant, I'm talking to this thing that is acting like human, but it's not. So I think it can also help just like make that interaction between the user and the machine a little bit better. Also, Elon Musk has its fun mode, which just turns the AI into like a troll. I don't know, if like an edgelord. If you like that stuff, you can turn it on. It's called fun mode. It's not so fun, but I don't know. and that's it. Like I have another example of like how to build an AI using those pillars, but I'm going to give back the talk to Ali, and I think that's it, right? I have a lot of stuff here, but I don't want to bore you with this stuff. So like, I'm going to pass it to Ali. Do you want to continue, Ali? Hold on. Let me go over here and close this. There you go. Oh, hold on. Let me, 1 second. Let me just update it here to be on your slide. 1 second, I'm sorry. Working with AI. Should I go about this stuff? No, right? Yeah, you want? Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Pablo.
Sure.
So actually the really cool thing is Pablo and I met almost 6 years ago when I was speaking at a conference in Madrid about machine learning principles for human design. And so this was a really early concept that we were doing at Booking.com, where we were doing a lot of the principles that Pablo talked about, like personalization for travel and integrating features like an X button on the top of a photo so that we could learn people's travel preferences. And at the time, machine learning, I mean, not even at the time, currently it's a part of AI, but this whole AI craze hadn't quite yet happened, and as a result, there just weren't as many tools for designers and marketers and product managers and founders to be able to utilize AI and integrate it into their product development process. Well, luckily today, this is something that we can do and we do have at our disposal, and I know a lot of us are here today about how to tangibly use AI in our product design practice. So here's a few examples of how we can do that. So Figma, they just introduced a bunch of AI features, including localization and language translation. Canva, for example, who a lot of the non-designers must know, is an amazing tool that also allows all kinds of AI to be integrated and used into ways that we can design faster, design better. And I've oftentimes heard like, oh, real designers don't use Canva. Well, hell yeah, they do. It's just a way for us to get a starting point and better inspiration for projects that are to come. In addition to that, we can make dope videos with AI. So who in the past here has hired a video editor from Fiverr and it didn't quite work out? Yeah, I definitely have also. Well, we don't actually really need that anymore because we have all kinds of ways like Descript that we can create our own videos using AI. Runway ML is also an amazing tool for doing that and training models as well. And a lot of these tools are free and they're at your disposal and you can use them and we can talk about it later on, the best ways to use them. But there is absolutely no shame in starting a project with AI. So I definitely recommend it to everyone. And that includes creating images as well. So DALL-E is a great tool for that. Who here has used DALL-E? Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna say a humble brag here. I was one of the first people to get access to DALL-E back in 2021 as part of their creator program. And I thought I was like really, really cool making AI generated images, and now like everyone can do it, so I'm not as cool. But DALL-E is amazing, and you can make all sorts of images, Midjourney as well. This is actually something that we used to use on our projects before we started using Lumi. And Midjourney has some really great features, but again, it never quite cut it for us. As you saw with the AstroPay website we presented, the stock images always ended up looking like stock, which for a premier design studio is not ideal. So one really cool thing that happened to us recently is, as I mentioned, Pablo and I have known each other for a long time, and when I opened up Flexi, his different projects were some of our early clients, including Lumi. So what Lumi is it's a way to make stock images not boring anymore, which is something that is really troubling if you're a designer, a product manager, a founder, anyone who is trying to make something look really visual, but you don't necessarily have budgets of tens of thousands of dollars to be able to produce this content yourself. So if you're not in that boat, what do you do? For example, you have a real estate company. What if the buildings aren't built yet? How do you attract people to the sites that you're building in order to get buy-in from investors? Or how do you, if you're creating a new application, be able to create images of users using your product when you don't even have users? So this is a problem that Lumi has been able to solve in a really visual way. And one of the really cool things here that we've done at Flexi is we've been able to partner with Lumi to be able to build some features of their product. And this has been an incredible opportunity for us because not only do we get to work with some of the best designers and developers in the world, I'm looking at you, Mitch, and you, Pablo, but we're able to actually build a tool that we ourselves are using all the time. So here are some of the features that we've been able to build alongside the Lumi team, and now I'm going to take a pause and tell you how at Flexi we actually use Lumi to accelerate the design process. And I hope in sharing this information, you guys can take something out of this and use any of the AI tools that we've mentioned today with your studio, with your real estate company, at BBVA, and be able to integrate it better into your creative process. So I think one of the main things that a lot of us have heard as creatives is like, oh, AI is going to take your jobs. You're no longer going to be able to charge for what was once your craft. And at Flexi, we found that that's not only completely false, but we've been able to do our job so much better, and our clients are so much happier with the product because not only is it functional and high performing, but it's incredibly visual. And a big part of that is being able to use the tools that we've been able to showcase to our clients, especially ones who have slightly less imagination. So how have we been able to use this? And how have we been able to use AI tools to benefit to our advantage? So first of all, this has completely sped up our creative process. So when we're showing something to a client, instead of now trying to get budget to do an entire lengthy and costly photo shoot, we just create the images, renderings, high quality renderings of office spaces if we're building a co-working website. We're also able to focus on big ideas and concepts and not get into Photoshop and start editing images to make them passable. We're also able to avoid all kinds of repetitive tasks. So now my design team is much smaller than it would ordinarily need to be in a traditional advertising or design agency because my designers are empowered with AI tools, and we're able to include high quality assets, and especially using Lumi, we've been able to use unique photos. So this is an example of a website that we're currently building. This client has office spaces all over Morocco, Romania, the UK, and we were able to build an entire site and show them a visual concept before they gave us any content. And ordinarily, we would have to explain to them why the site was going to look so much better when it's really difficult to do that if the images itself aren't extremely visual. And so this is something that AI has enabled us to do. Also, one of our designers who was working on this particular client basically said this Figma plugin, which is what Lumi comes in the form of, it's also a website, was able to maximize efficiency. And with just a quick copy paste, they were able to get all these high quality images into frames and have the designs come to life. And ordinarily, this is something we would spend hours on. And if you're the owner of an agency, you know time is money. So this is not something we wanted to do because it was completely unnecessary. And for example, with your real estate company, if you don't have the funds to do high quality 3D renderings to be able to show a concept to potential investors is so unbelievably powerful. We also worked on another real estate website which hadn't even raised funds yet. And again, because of our ability to use AI images, we were able to save the client so much time and so much money and get their website up and ready online just by being able to plug and play these AI powered tools. So this is something that we have personally found to be super, super powerful in our design process. I've personally used all of the tools that we've talked about, Runway, Figma, Lumi, for example, which is a tool that we helped co-create with the team, but also that we're avid users of. So with that, we'll open it up and Pablo and I will have a little chat, and anyone that wants to ask questions or wants further clarification about how in practice we can actually use these AI tools in our creative process, we can go ahead and kick that off. So Pablo, want to come up and join me here?
Cool. So let's just, I don't know, it's a few of us, so maybe we can just keep it open, and if you have questions for us or Allie, and we can try to answer them. And hold on, get some chairs.
Cool, so I'll just open it up to the audience and ask you guys, what AI tools are you using today in your creative process?
There you go. Okay. So what tools are you using?
I would say we use Notion a lot. We're avid users of Notion AI. I would say we're not a coder. I'm going to talk here as a product guy. In order to create even PRDs, instead of going and spending time and asking what are the requirements for the product, with Notion's AI, you can do a PRD literally in a minute. And that has helped a lot to have clear language for then designers or engineers to know what exactly we want the product to be. So that's actually super useful. And I think a lot of the prompts that you were showing before, Pablo, we use them a lot.
Nice. Yeah.
It just helps a lot, like a good design AI tool, I have to say.
Has anyone else here used Notion AI to create PRDs? Yeah, it's amazing.
What is a PRD?
A product requirement doc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you guys don't do that. We're like the Wild West on this team.
You know, we make those and then the developers don't read them.
Mitch, we're looking at you.
What's that?
That's why I think with that it's better because it makes them shorter.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
these massive documents.
the thing is that we make them with AI and then they use an AI to summarize it. You know, and then they use the AI to reply. You know? So it's really just a robot talking to each other. But no, like, and also we use it on like productivity tools, like, the tools that we've been using for a while, and then now with AI, but some of them have been doing it really good. Like in the beginning, it was kind of gimmicky. There was like, oh, there was AI, and it's like, this is not really helping me. But I think that the tools have been doing a better job of actually integrating it. Like, for example, on Slack, some people don't. I mean, who here uses the Slack or something like this? Okay, cool. So, like, you know, like threads can get crazy, right? If so, like, and then know that AI is kind of an add-on, but it's worth it if you don't want to read all of those, like, some of these, like, I don't know, at least on our team, it's just like 80, 100 messages in one thread. And then you come and you just read the last messages, but you don't see the whole context, and then you have to read it. And so this thing is just like, summarize it, please. So it's actually pretty, I don't know, like you cannot just leave 3 days without reading Slack because you're like out of the loop, totally. So this thing really helps.
Cool. So Pablo, I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when I met Pablo some years ago, he was a well-known illustrator and digital artist. And I'm curious, coming from the more traditional world, what are some of the biggest challenges you've found with integrating AI into your creative process?
Challenges? I don't know if challenges. Like, if anything, it has really helped me. I think well, you could say that there are some challenges because then sometimes I wonder if I'm depending too much on AI. Like, now, am I becoming lazy? Am I becoming less creative? Because now this thing just can do a lot of stuff for me. So, like, sometimes I do worry about that. That is like, oh shit, like my brain is just becoming smoother. You know, it's just like I'm becoming dumber because this thing just does it for me. So but I don't know. Like I think that for me, sometimes also. Because there's AI, you think, oh well, I'll just do it with AI. But sometimes you didn't need AI. You know, you could have just done it, but you go through this rabbit hole trying to get the robot to understand you, do it the way you want it, and you could have just drawn it yourself without the AI. But you want to just like go through this thing and sometimes like explaining your vision to this thing and it understanding you back can take some time. So it's like the tool, instead of actually making it easier, can just get you into this rabbit hole of constantly like going back and forth with the robot that doesn't understand you. And so yeah, I would say like making you dumber and also making you dependent on it. And also sometimes you use it only because it's there, but maybe you don't actually need it, and only because it's available. But should you use it? Maybe sometimes you should question yourself if you should actually use AI or something.
So curious to ask the audience here, is anyone here coming from a more traditional art background? And how has your experience been using AI in your design process?
Well, I mean, I used to be in architecture, and we used to like ship our renders to China. to get like these vendors, and they were crazy expensive. So knowing that a lot of these things are now you can just do in-house and just how it works faster. But one thing that troubles me some is, yeah, AI helps you do things faster, but also you enter into like this rabbit hole of spectrum and you're just like trying all these different options. So that's actually like a question that I would like to ask back to you. Because for example, if you're sketching by hand, it's kind of like limited and there's like a neurological connection between like your hand and your brain that it kind of just throws things like a little easier per se than like when you're trying to communicate with a robot. So how do you handle your teams to stay like productive or yourself even when you're opening Pandora's box with AI? Because I can imagine myself, I haven't been able to find like the right AI for me to use like my design process. I use like ChatGPT, but that's not creative. And but I can perfectly see myself spending hours just browsing all these things and testing it out and seeing all these images and going through like all these different tangents of amazing things that it's throwing back at me, but it's not necessarily what I need at the moment. So how do you manage that with your teams and yourself when you're working? Or you just go into rabbit holes?
So do you want to answer that, Pablo, and I can answer?
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question, it's like sometimes there's so many options, and it can be overwhelming. All the things that you can do, and like all the tools that you can be using, and sometimes a sketch should have done it, and maybe not perfect, but at least you had control and of the output. And is your question like how do you stop?
Yeah, how do you stay focused?
How do you stay focused? I don't know. Like I have gone through the process of like using a lot of different tools, but then after that, like I understand the weaknesses and the strengths of the different tools. So later, like after I have tried them, now I know what tool to use for specific purposes. So like I think it's good to go down the rabbit hole of trying them and just like seeing what is available and what they can do. And then after that, well, now you know what they can do and what they're good at and how to use them. So next time there's a project with a specific purpose, you know what tool to use, and you don't have to go down the rabbit hole anymore. It's hard because once you enter there, it's almost like going to IKEA, where you go for a specific piece and then you end up with a couple of shopping carts full of crap that you need. It does feel like that whenever you're using these AI tools, because you just came for one specific thing and then you end up with a lot of stuff on your cart.
So just to go off of what you said, with my team, I set really specific time limits for everything. So for example, with this project, one of the biggest things that we learned was that because the client didn't have any images to begin with, they had just started the company. So we did the investor deck for them, we did their landing page, and we did the branding as well. We just had to be really strict when it came to setting milestones and setting timelines. And I would say if you're coming from an architecture background and you're now exploring UX design and understanding what tools are best for you, the best thing is just to give yourself limits so that you can explore, but to an extent, and then just ship it. And that's actually something I learned from you, Pablo, because I come from the corporate world. Like I worked at Microsoft, I worked at LinkedIn, I worked at Booking.com, and we spent so much time debating. I know you from BBVA probably know this, and like, how are our users going to feel? And let's spend a month testing this X button and deciding if we should put it on a card. And at the end of the day, you just have to ship product and see how it resonates with users. And so it's the same thing I'll say with, using these AI tools is like, understand what problem you're trying to solve, use the AI tool to an extent that you're going to be able to get the output that is good enough, and then just ship it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand like VA, like spending a lot of that is like people's money, and like a slight change might mean millions of dollars, So Like, I understand why there's so many processes behind but so, like, it's all about, like, the risk, you know, that you take. And it's like, hey, if it's just something that no one is seeing anyway, and it's just like 20 people using, so just like chip it, it's just like see what's going on, what's happening, you know, and but the risk is always there if it is a big product, and I understand, but so even then, you can say like, hey, like, let's just like segment a specific, I don't know, a part of or user base, and then ship it to them and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that way your risk is lower and you can just move faster. But towards your question, I don't know, just like stop. You know, it's just like, yeah, okay, this, like you said, chip it, but this, whatever it is, like they just put it out there. Yeah.
And just to add on to what Pablo said, you're completely right. It really depends on who the users are. So, for example, when we started redesigning AstroPay, which is one of our clients, the CEO is here, actually, thanks for being here. So we needed to do so much overhaul that we didn't do A/B testing, and we weren't tracking metrics the way that, for example, at Booking.com, when I worked there, we had over 1,000 experiments running on the site at any given time. That's why if you look on mobile, it's really different than desktop. Also, mobile is always cheaper, so that's just a little insider knowledge for you who's booking your next vacation.
Mobile is cheaper?
Oftentimes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Why?
Always price comparison. I don't
Laptops are
know.
more expensive, so you have more money?
Exactly. So, yeah, something like that. So, in the context of, you know, AI tools and what to use and what not to use, again, it's going to totally depend if you're, you know, Serenity, which is a brand new product, or whether you're BBVA, or whether you're Microsoft, or now AstroPay that's growing a lot. What we did for them a year ago is very different than how we would approach things today, because the company's maturity is at a different level. So it's the same with AI tools. It depends who your client is, you know, what the risk is of changing something. So for example, maybe introducing an AI image inside of WBVA's app is going to have much higher stakes than it would on a co-working spaces website. So these are all things that only humans can determine how to move forward with it, and that's why the human component and the UX principles that Pablo was talking about are so important.
Like going back to my answer before, like whenever I'm trying to use these things and come up with like something, like I learn what what I was saying, what the different models, what they're good at. For example, Perplexity is great because it gives you sources of where it's getting the information from. So sometimes it's good to start that way, and then that way it gives me, it tells me where the information is coming from. So then I can go and check that information. I can check the study or the website where that information is coming from. And then from there I can learn more, and I can use that to have a better answer at the end, if it is an article, if it is whatever it is that I'm trying to learn. But then if I'm doing like code, like Claude is great for code. Like Claude will be, like just for chatting, like the responses it gives you are very similar to ChatGPT or Perplexity. They all behave very similar when you're just chatting with them. But for specific purposes like code, Claude is great. For other things that are more personalized, I would say like ChatGPT, just because you can create your own agent for very specific purposes. So it's just knowing what is it that you want to do, and then that way you decide what is the tool that you want to use. But you have to try it first, I guess.
I'm curious to hear from the audience, are there any new tools that you guys have learned about in this session?
I don't know if in this session, but I'm using lately the AI called 11 Labs, you know it?
11 Labs, it sounds familiar, yeah.
It's for voice. Actually, what I use it is for I develop a copy, and then I train a couple of voices, my own voice, and I don't have to record my voice. I mean, it reads completely in any language you want and any intonation you want.
Yeah.
The copy. So I have to do podcasts. So I'm so lazy to write and then speak. So now I only write. And yeah, I had to train my voice a while. It's very interesting because I do the copy on ChatGPT, but the thing is that most of the time what I do is I prepare my work in AI tools. I don't do my final work there.
Yeah.
You know? So then when I have enough confidence that the creativity is some place, is very, very well crafted in terms of the idea, then I produce it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I produce it with non-AI tools. The regular tools have done all my life. But at least it helps a lot to sell the idea to a client if it's for a client, or to reassure myself that it's the right structure, the right copy. And then I do the voice not for final, you know, I do it to listen to the flow of the copy.
Yeah.
And then, and a different day, because I'm too lazy to do it the same day, I record my voice.
So you actually record it, but you first like see how the robot does it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I keep parts of them because
Yeah.
I still feel that it's not perfect, but other people that heard say it's perfect, but to me it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting that maybe I come from I've been a creative director in advertising for a long, long time, and I think an artist too, and we have a lot of respect for the craft. And probably in our DNA, the craft is something that you don't do with necessarily machines. You don't give all the responsibility to the machines.
Yeah.
But it can be super helpful to make sure that you have the right idea and the execution is going to be great. And then I think in a couple of days, probably I will be executing more, I will be crafting more with AI. But so far, I use the AI to a point that where I have to intervene. I have to go and do something myself.
I think, I mean, if we were to use like the basics of creating movies, pre-production, production, and post-production, right? Those 3 stages, and you could say that design process, like it applies something like that, a strategy, editing, ideation, which is potentially pre-production, production, you actually do the design, the prototypes, and then post-production, all the details, all the animation, all the fine-tuning of the design, right? And I think with AI, you can decide on what you want to spend more time, you know, as a human. Because, for example, you could say that maybe the strategy is something that you want to delegate to the robot because like it can come up with so many freaking ideas that it's like, hey, just like help me with brainstorm. I don't have to do a brainstorm session with 10 people in the company that sometimes those meetings cost a lot of money, and then sometimes the output from those meetings is just crap. But hey, you can just have a brainstorm with this thing. It just like gives you like 20 better ideas than whatever was going to come up from those brainstorm sessions. Those brainstorm sessions feel more like a team bonding activity, not so much for about ideas. Anyway, I think then suddenly you can say like, hey, I'm going to minimize that time that I was spending maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Now it's going to be with AI only half a week, you know, that it's going to help me like doing all of that part. In that way, now I have more time for the production, where like, hey, where I do want to put the craft, and I don't want to delegate too much of the to the AI. So now instead of having only 2 weeks for the production, I have 3. And then maybe also the post-production, all the fine-tuning, the things that at the end you rarely have time to put, because like, oh shit, like the deadline is here, like, oh, but we should put that animation, that effect. No, dude, no time, chip it, you know? So now you could also like, hey, suddenly now you have time for that stuff too. So why? Because you are delegating some of the work in those phases to the machines, but you're still deciding what are the things that the human still wants to do, you know, and then suddenly you have more time for that. I think it's a great way to say it. See, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you something. I don't know if it happens to you the same or to anybody here, but like for example, for me, it's quite sometimes very tiring to try to give some context to the AI. Like
Yeah.
for example, and you were mentioning about like BBVA, about like perhaps we could use a tool like this. And just recently we are changing the style of pictures, of photos, right? And we have a bunch of guidelines or rules that we must be using in our pictures that we can use in whatever we use it, right? So for me, sometimes this is like very important, that sometimes ChatGPT actually is improving in that, like I can keep a conversation with it regarding to certain topic, and then it remembers what we have been talking about. But I was wondering if, for example, in this case, Lumi could remember our
yes.
conversations.
Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, well, it's just, I was going to finish with this, like, because sometimes it's, we want to use it as an assistant,
Yeah.
but an assistant that constantly needs to be told, to be reminded,
Yeah.
like we were talking about this, and it's very tiring, and then you drop using it. But if it remembers it, I think it would be really.
And not only that, but imagine it. So there was this concept that I was pitching to the team, and they ignored me. Maybe they see like this is something people want. Something that I was calling very cheeky on our side, where it's on our side we have Lumi as the chef, but the chef that follows recipes. So it goes through the cookbook and follows the recipe that it already knows. To create images, like maybe this recipe is more like brand guidelines or different image references, or maybe a color palette. You want, like, hey, I don't want to keep reminding you to do warm images where the humans or the people in the photos are this type of people, and I want to be using this type of, I don't know, even the type of lenses or film that I want to use in the images. This is the type of stuff. So I want to be able to just like save all those settings and then give that to my producer, the actual people who are making all the content and all that stuff. And I want to give them the liberty to use that little agent that would allow them to just make the images, and they're always on brand because the creative director was in charge of creating that recipe. And then as the chef, the recipe maker can give it to the pinches, which is the cook assistants, right? To all the pinches, so they can just follow the recipe, and then they can do it's always great. And so, yeah, and I can actually show you a demo that we had. Hey, you will see it. My team didn't see it. They always leave. Like, I record Loop videos, 0 views.
You should have shared that with me. So I would be amazed, like, oh, perfect.
It's just that I do sometimes come up with really dumb ideas, and they're 1 out of 10. So that's why they ignore me. But no, like this is exactly something that I can show you later, like what we're building, but we're building something like that.
And Pablo, just to add on to what you were saying, so one of the biggest challenges starting a studio and having been a product designer myself is people always want to know that I'm the one that is working on the design. And in the beginning, it was really challenging because there's obviously only one of me, and we have multiple clients running at one time. You're a creative director, so you know this pain all too well. But like Pablo was saying, when you are able to train AI to remember the style, the preferences, like the level of quality, then
even the client, for example.
Yeah,
exactly. You're able to scale this in a way that you can have a lot more control and consistency. And so this way, the 2 examples that we showed you before, which was Serenity and Commons, they are actually the same client. and they have the exact same preferences, and they actually wanted both sites to look and feel very similar. And so, well, now we know that Lummi has this in his product roadmap, that's great. But at the time, we had to basically make sure consistency was the same across the different sites, because the client has the same taste and basically wanted something very similar but different, which is very challenging to do, right? So this is something that, we had to take into account. Obviously, we used Lumi images within our design process, and if we were able to create consistency, and if I, as the head of product design at Flexi, am able to keep creative consistency across all my projects, it's much easier then to tell clients, yeah, don't worry, you have my stamp of approval backed by AI that's going to make sure that all the products that we end up shipping, have that high bar. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know if BBVA would pay for one of these things, but we recently were in a meeting where we were set all these like guidelines, and when you are among like 300 designers that need to make decisions, the decisions are gonna be, enormous. So, and interpret by each one of us. But if you can give this kind of, you just give the prompt and it will give the outcome as we want, that would be wonderful, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you share those things with the team. And the thing is that it's not just a website that you do, and that's it. You're constantly creating content for social media, for campaigns, for different things. And you want to keep that brand voice consistent, right? And also, you cannot be always there on top of everything. You want to give freedom to your teams so they can go out there and try different things, but also you don't want it to deviate too much from the brand. So that's the idea.
And just the last thing I'll say about this, because I also come from big enterprises, so I was at Microsoft for 5 years before I started Flexi, and we had hundreds of people on design systems, like on the Microsoft design systems team, because I think Microsoft as a company has over 10,000 designers. So how do you create consistency? And one of our biggest pain points was actually images. Like, what are the images that we use? And also illustrations. That was another thing. Like, how do you scale illustrations on Azure as opposed to on Teams, as opposed to, on GitHub and the various landing pages? And it was super challenging. And sometimes it could take us, I'm not kidding, months to get approval. And as a designer, that's super frustrating. As a product manager, it makes shipping product almost impossible. That's why it takes years to ship product. And so I think to your point, and again, more tools like this, should they emerge, they're just going to make the whole process, especially for large enterprises, so much more scalable, because you can have AI keep consistency, and you can reduce the amount of friction that designers and product managers have in these large enterprises, and create a super scalable system for us to be able to do what we do best as designers and as humans, which is to think and to solve human problems instead of dealing with this BS.
So, this was a very early prototype of what we've been thinking, where it's like, hey, maybe some sliders where it's like, hey, you want it to be modern, minimalist, and you want it to be playful and subtle. And then, go there and say like banana New York and banana chop and the streets of Brooklyn with pink lights. And then maybe you have some images for reference. Let's say that, I don't know, this is the vibe that you're going with. So you upload different images that you want to use as your reference, maybe a color palette or something. And well, I'm hoping it works, because I was, so let's say that people eating bananas. So like the idea is that, hey,
this creates images based on those settings. And now your images will be based on your brand. Right now, it's not working as much, but the idea is that you can create a brand and then you share it with your team. So now all of the images are going to be, obviously I didn't go into detail about the colors and stuff. But
I understand, your point,
it,
because.
it does have pink lights.
Yeah, it does.
I wanted to shed some more light on how this AI thing would work. Do not imagine it as a simple model that you train once and that's it. But if you have these multiple agents, each of them is really good at doing one task. It's the same way in which you think of your design team. So there might be like one agent that's going to be the brand guideline tool that will make sure that the guidance are in place. Then there's going to be the creative, and it's going to make sure that whatever you're doing is really creative in that sense. So then you will have the speller checker, and it's going to check the spelling, and then there's the translator. And so in general, how systems at the end of the day will work is not on relying on one model or relying on one prompt or one training, but having this bunch of AIs working together collaboratively to make sure that the result is the best result. So it's like a workflow and a bunch of agents interconnected. So you can have one, but each of them has to be really good at their job and not trying to do it like perfect for all.
Another tool that that we're building that is similar to this, and this one is more fleshed out. So I made it in a way where it's like you use, let's say that you even have just a straight up color palette, where like I want to use that as my image reference, and then, well, let's put astronaut. So I don't know, you have a space thing, but maybe like some things also, whenever you are writing these prompts, you have to, writing a prompt is like, you have to know a little bit of art direction, like, what are the types of shots that you can make, and maybe this is not the language that any designer will have, and it's not part of the vocabulary. So what if what we're trying to do is just like expose those kinds of things that these things understand, because they have been trained on just creating extreme close-ups or the documentary types of photos. Let's say that you want extreme close-up, but as a regular designer, even maybe you don't have that knowledge of how to say extreme close-up of a photo, and like, for example, also we're thinking of expose different trends that might be happening. So, you want it to be with this color variation, but with a specific trend. But let's not do trends right now. But just giving it an image or multiple images, it starts working more as a, what do you call it? Like almost like a mood board, where like in a mood board you have. In a mood board, you kind of put together different things that are supposed to give you inspiration of the output, Like you say like, ooh, I like this, and I like this thing, and I like these things, and then you as a designer are supposed to see this mood board, and then, I don't know, work with your brain algorithm to output something that looks like that mood board, right? So like we're trying to like simplify that process too, where it's like by just giving it this thing and giving it a simple prompt, but also giving you that vocabulary that maybe you don't have for the type of photo or the type of film, even. And sometimes I don't even know what these films give you. But let's say that extra chrome is very cool, because it kind of has this very toned down, muted colors. So those are things also that maybe I didn't grow up using these films, but I know that when I see them, they give me this kind of feeling. So like the idea is that you combine different things, and maybe also, you know what, you're looking to be trendy, and you want, you're realizing that out there's a lot of people doing retro, techno, utopia kind of images. So then you imagine it not just only with the color inspiration, but also a trend. And these trends might be like dynamic and changing depending on what is popular right now.
This is the tool that you use for your stock?
What's that?
This is the tool that you use actually for the stock?
Yeah, so like we're going to be exposing this so you guys can use it yourselves. So like in Lumi, we already curated and created a lot of images. So you can see that every day we have a specific vibe, and these are images that we have, like every day we curate them and there's always something new. And the idea is that these images are available for, like, let's say that, hey, you like this image, but usually you don't do all in one format. You do horizontal, vertical. You can do it for Instagram and for LinkedIn. So with AI, we allow you to just like have all of those available right away. Like if you want it vertical with this thing on the bottom, so you can put all your copy and your buttons on the top and still keep your subject. Like we automatically do all of that work for you. So the image is ready for all the types of things.
Excuse me, is it possible for you to do a set of customized photographs or images for a client, for example?
Yeah, that's what we're doing, and this is an MVP. This is like a prototype that we're building, but it's going to work like this, where you upload some reference images, which is like the brand, maybe some photos that they already used in the past, and they want to create more photos, or maybe even just a Lumi image that you tell them like, hey, go see the images and tell me which ones you like. Save them, create a collection of images, and then we can create almost like a mood board grade. And then you can create new images that are specific to you that no one else sees based on those images that you liked.
Okay.
And this thing can, I mean, for example, I give it that, but let's say that I don't know, this guy, I don't know, you're looking into an astronaut and with puffy shirts. So let's see if these things also imagine always something different. So it's, a lot of it is trial and error until they get what you want, and also that the trend is probably going to mess it up. But let's see if it does. Yeah, no, it messed it up. Let's see if it creates another one without the trend. Yeah, hold on. There you go. So now it has the astronaut with those puffy shirts. Because hey, you give us a reference, and now it's going to create specific things, and also, like I said, extreme close-up, but if I were to not say extreme close-up, it should create, let's say, that wide angle one, a silhouette, right? Which is another type of images that sometimes you want, which is like more of just a profile and with a black a silhouette on top of something that is like a light. It's going to have a hard time because it's going to be like, do you want a silhouette or you want a puffy shirt? So like, I think it's kind of trying to do it, but hey, like that's the idea where it's like, hey, you potentially put some images as inspiration, almost as a mood board, and then it outputs images with a new thing based on that image. Yeah.
So is it always a flat image, or is there an ability to have like some sort of like vector? So for example, with this image right now, could I remove the white background so I can have like half of the astronaut's body with the image and the rest on my like pink background per se? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
is that something that you would like us to do?
I mean, I'm just curious because or another example that I'm thinking of, like if AI will at some point produce vectors. Because for example, right now I'm thinking of the project I'm working on particularly has like icons and vector images, like illustrations, that God knows who made them, because they've had like, I don't know how many people working on this. And then what if I want another one? You know, like if I could just like, I mean, right now my only solution if I want to recreate like another icon is to kind of like use the pencil and do it myself, because I kind of, but or like the illustrations, you know what I'm saying? Like what if they want to keep on using those illustrations, but I have no idea where they came from? Like, will at some point AI have like vectors or the ability to kind of like tweak the images, or are they always going to be like flat images?
The output of these models are flat images, but then after that, they can go through processes that like create vectors, as in like, hey, for example, here I just asked it to make it more as an illustration with flat vectors.
Okay.
So from here, like I can see where it's like, hey, I like this, and with AI, really easily we could remove the background and
Okay.
also even pass like this is not even AI, this is just like good old like a raster to vector, what do you call it? The vectorization, you know? This wouldn't be AI, it will be just an old school process that allows you to just like create vectors from images.
Put around it as okay.
Yeah.
Cool, so does anyone have any remaining questions? Yeah, it's pretty good. Also, is this something that you guys can imagine using in your creative process, such as we showed with what we do at Flexi?
Yeah, okay, well, I need your email.
Cool, so we're gonna wrap up right now. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Oh, from the audience.
Yeah, we have a
So there's a live stream with like over 400 people watching right now.
Oh.
Yeah. Or 300? Did I exaggerate?
400.
400 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a question from Orlando, and he's a product designer, and he asks, how do you foresee accessibility being implemented in AI? Oh, wow.
Accessibility being implemented in AI.
And the design/development process to help make products more accessible for folks with special needs, and what challenges do you use running into?
Yeah, so I think one of the amazing things about that question is, first of all, it's something that, especially in large product companies like at Microsoft, like at BBVA, like at Astropay, that it's going to be when it's the next Revolut. We see all the time is that there is this huge need for accessibility because we have so many different types of clients and customers using it. So one of the cool things about AI, like Pablo talked about in the principles, is that we can set all kinds of guardrails, we can set all kinds of rules, essentially. So for example, if we're dealing with a population that is colorblind or that has, sensitivity of all kinds of sorts, we can actually train AI models to only create output that doesn't include certain colors or that only includes certain types of colors, or if we have, and I know this is even extending when it comes to accessibility, there's been a huge push to go beyond the traditional types of accessibility and using colorblind because that's one of the most common ones. By the way, Pablo is colorblind, fun fact. So another thing is around creating products that don't trigger things like ADD or ADHD, and there's all kinds of principles that as designers we use to make sure that the features that we're shipping or the images that we're showing aren't triggering to people in any way. So with AI, because we have these guardrails, because we can control, not always, because as we know, AI is a black box a lot of the times, we can at least set rules so that we can make the outputs more accessible. So this is actually one of the amazing things about AI and scalability, like we talked about, is that as enterprises, and even for us, that's a studio, we can be a lot more conscious about what we're outputting because we can eventually train AI models, or if Pablo and Mitch create this as part of Lumi, we can have a lot more control over this. Anything you want to add?
Well, I was just like, I tried to make an astronaut, but I think this image was too heavy, and it just created a guy with glasses. Sorry. Yeah, we can do a lot of stuff with accessibility. I think what Allie said. She's
So
correct.
maybe we'll take like one more question.
One more question.
No,
No, no more
that's the
questions?
only one.
I was wondering, I don't want to take too
Yeah.
longer, but because of that question, I remember a documentary on Netflix that was talking about this, and I forgot the word in English for sesgos.
Yeah.
Biases, yeah, exactly. that AIs had, especially with people, and like coloring people's skins, or also some, like, for example, I have had a hard time when I tried to ask for a Mexican character, person is very stereotyped.
Yeah,
And
I've done that one too.
yeah, okay, or very Latin. I was once like designing a dating app, but it was for Mexicans or Latins, and I couldn't find anything. I mean, it was really, really hard for me to use a picture. I ended up like not including those kind of pictures.
Yeah, you put Mexican man and it gives you someone with a sombrero. And
Yeah,
what is going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that eventually, because AI, as we see, is only improving and getting better, we can start to create more rules, more guardrails, so that we prevent any sort of racial stereotyping when we're trying to create images of people.
Are those created with Lumi?
Yeah, so like have a presentation specifically about that, about creating images, inclusive AI images. And it's something that we really care about at Lumi, because the idea is what you were saying, that usually, let me actually show you some examples of created with AI that these are some examples of like what we want to create, but I want to show you, well, this was more about generative AI, but I wanted to show you what it actually does. For example, here, this is, if you just ask for a beautiful woman, it will usually be like a young, fair skin, blonde, ain't nothing against with like, I don't know, light eyes, because I think these things have been trained on all of the images that are out there. And well, the thing is that all of the images that are out there are like more weighted towards like that standard of beauty that exists and that we have, has existed for forever in media and magazines and photographers and everything. So that's the default, is usually going to be images like this, because they have been trained more on that kind of data. Also, if you ask for a successful person, it would be a dude in a mountain, like doing this. And I suppose there's a lot of stock images of success. And I said specifically person because I was like, hey, let's see if the robots think that women can be successful. And apparently no. You have to be very intentional and say like successful woman. If not, it's going to be doing usually just a dude in a mountain. And usually, like whenever you just ask for, I don't know, a woman, it will be something like this. It will be like images like this. So when you want to create this, you have to be very intentional and use like language that is more inclusive. And sometimes that you include, that it might actually feel weird because you're saying like, I want a black person. And it's like, oh, am I being racist because I'm asking for this? But no, it's just that these things, they're not going to go that way unless you ask them to do it that way. So this is something that we have care a lot in Lumi, that we're like, we try to age, race, ethnicity, like a lot of these things, and also different touches about like the type of hair, the skin, like the different, I don't know, details that we all have in our faces that, so we try to make our images to have those things. And yeah, so for example, this is a comparison from just woman versus middle-aged Latina woman with curly hair and laugh lines, where it's like you're very specific about how you want the image to be different, If you just ask for a woman, it's going to be, I mean, it's this beautiful image, you know, it's, I don't know, it looks like a model, like a mid-century model, I don't know. Also a man, it's just like that's human. It's like a beautiful blue eyes, and it's just a very handsome man. But I don't know, if you want more, like that usually be the default. So like for example, this one is a adult Pacific Islander man with tattoos. It's suddenly like, oh, I kind of want to have a beer with that guy. I don't know, has a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like there are some things that you can use in your prompts to say like, hey, the type of fake, age, race, ethnicity, gender, and those are the kinds of things also that, I don't know if you saw on the settings that we are putting, that we want to include as part of the image creation, where these things are not something you have to think about too much, where like you can press the shuffle button and then create images that are inclusive, even where you cannot even apply your own biases, you know, because like, it's not bias, it's just that maybe you don't think that way, you know, it's not the usual things that you will think, and you would ask of this thing. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to show you that because it's something that we are doing to allow that. Very cool.
Cool. So we're gonna wrap up now. We're gonna stick around for another 20, 30 minutes. Enjoy the food, enjoy the pizza, the beers, everything. And if you have any questions about Lumi, Flexi, AI, any of the things we talked about, if you wanna just chat about the weather and how it needs to be a little warmer, we can do that as well. So, muchas gracias a todos. Thanks, Pablo.
Yay.